Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If this is possibly your first time watching my video, my name is Priscilla and this is Julissa.
And
oh my gosh! So for this video, I wanted to go ahead and talk about stepping out in your faith. It's different for everybody. I know for me, it was kind of discouraging because when I first stepped out in my faith, if you've watched my first video, my testimony, I did mention that I didn't have a household full of Christians, basically, so I didn't have anybody to ask questions to. I didn't have anybody to talk about Christ with. But luckily, throughout my walk, I did find people that were kind enough to help guide me through my walk and that were able to pour wisdom and knowledge to me. So I wanted to go ahead and talk about a man named Peter in the book of Matthew. It starts Matthew chapter 14, verse 15. As evening approached, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a remote place, and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food." Jesus replied, "They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat." "We have here only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish," they answered. "Bring them here to me," he said, and he directed the people to sit down on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. Then he gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the people. They all ate and were satisfied, and the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. So the number of those who ate was about 5,000 men, besides women and children. Jesus walks on water. Immediately, Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side, while he dismissed the crowd. After he had dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night, he was there alone.
Picking up on verse 24, and the boat was already a considerable distance from the land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. When his disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage, it is I, don't be afraid." "Lord, if it's you," Peter replied, "tell me to come to you on the water." "Come," he said. Then Peter got down out of the boat and walked on the water and came towards Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. "You of little faith," he said, "why did you doubt?" And when they climbed into the boat and the wind died down, then those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God."
I want to go ahead and point out some things that stuck out to me. So if you've noticed in the beginning of where I had started off reading, so verse 21. The number of those who ate was about 5,000 men, besides women and children. So there was 5,000 men.
A lot of people.
Yes, a lot. There was 5,000 men on the land, correct? And then on the boat, there were 5 disciples plus Peter. And then out of the 6 disciples that were on the boat, one of them, which was Peter, was the only one that got out of the boat to go ahead and meet Jesus on the water. And it's just, I don't know how to wrap it, it's just so good, because so there was 5,000 men on the land, okay? 6 disciples stepped out, out of the 5,000 men, 6 disciples stepped out on the boat. Out of the 6, only 1 stepped out onto the water to go meet Jesus.
It's crazy.
And that one stepped out of the boat, stepping out in his faith, he's testing his faith, he's getting out of his comfort zone, as goes for the disciples as well. They took a step forward to get onto the boat. And granted, yes, even though Peter was sinking in the water because, again, he got frightened seeing all the wind and stuff like that, Jesus still met him and held him. Like, he went to go pick him up and even questioned him. You of little faith, he said, why did you doubt? And again, like, granted, like, yes, as Peter was sinking, like, he did have doubt, but he still took that leap of faith to get out of the boat. And again, like, it's just so good. And you had something to say too.
I think it was such a big point in the story that he did step out, and once he was looking at Jesus, he was taking those steps on water. So something that people would never think they could do, he is doing it focused on Jesus. And once he looks off at the wind, that's when he started sinking. So when he got disfocused, I don't know if that's a word. Is that a word? I don't know. Once he took his eyes off Jesus and got unfocused, that's when he started sinking, and that's when things started going wrong. But even though he lost, like, he got doubtful and fearful in that moment, Jesus was still like, here you go. And he still saved him, you know what I mean? And I thought that was just so amazing and good.
So, like, with that being said, I kind of wanted to ask a question too, like, where are you at when it comes to stepping out in faith? Like, are you the 5,000 men that are still, like, on the land, that are still kind of, like, stuck where you're at, and haven't even taken that step to get on the boat, like the disciples? Like, are you the disciples that are on the boat, but you're kind of stuck in between whether or not if you wanted to get back to your comfort zone where you were, like, feel secured with your flesh on the land, or are you battling the fact that, like, you also want to take that step of faith the way Peter did? Or are you Peter, the one that did take the step of faith to get out of the boat to meet Jesus, and you got doubtful, but you still, again, met Jesus on the water? So I did want to also go ahead and ask Julissa some questions about her faith and what it took for her to get to where she's at now. So my first question is, how long ago did you get saved?
I actually just had my save anniversary. I call it like a save-anniversary. I celebrated with Jesus on April 1st, 3 years ago. So I actually just hit 3 years. And I got saved at Encounter Day at Faith Assembly. And yeah, it's kind of funny that I got saved on April Fools. But it's okay. So 3 years, that's where I'm at.
Nice. My second question is, when did you step out in your faith? Like, to your church, to your family, to your friends? Like, when did you actually, like, push yourself?
Got it. Okay, so actually before I surrendered my life to Christ, I did go to church a couple times with my friends, and I wasn't in a headspace to just receive. Like, I was just going out with my friends. The worship was cool. It was like a concert. And I was just there to kind of hang out instead of really receive the word of God. And then once I fully surrendered my life to Christ at Encounter Day, I kind of dived right in. I started, like, I was in fine arts, which is something at our church, a lot of categories. Big story if you want to ask Still about it later. I joined H2O, which is like a Bible class in our church, and then I was just, like, submerged, and I actually was led to talk to my principal about leading motivational, like, quotes. I started on the little board in my senior year of high school.
She just sent, like, the stuff that she would write on their whiteboards in her classrooms to her chat.
Yeah, and I was just like, I just want to spread little pieces of hope and, like, sprinkle seeds. So I just started, like, little corner of my teacher's boards that would let me, and then I talked to my principal and was like, hey, so can I, like, do this, like, on the intercom?
Oh my goodness.
After the morning announcements. And she said yes, and that was amazing. So every morning I partnered with my friend, and we would just give, like, little motivational quotes, just, like, thoughts for the day, to just kind of feed people and just, like, lead them. So I thought that was really cool, but those were moments that I stepped out in faith. Like, I had no idea what I was doing. Like, once I was able to grasp the understanding of who God was, what he did for me, I was like, all right, yep, let's just go dive in. And that's when everyone kind of knew that I gave my life to Christ and I took steps out of faith.
My third question is, were there any obstacles you faced in the beginning? And did you ever become discouraged through those
Yes. I knew that the place I was in my life, before I surrendered my life to Christ, was very unhealthy. It was very influential, and I was not in a place to position myself where I wanted to go. And I had to separate myself from a lot of what I used to do to focus on myself and focus on God to guide me where I need to be. And that meant I lost a lot of friends. Like, I lost so many friends, and I cared and loved them so much, but I knew I needed to separate myself in a still place and quiet place so I could hear the voice of God to guide me, as I was very new to everything. So it was really hard to walk into school and see, like, my friends, like, it was hard, you know what I mean? And it was a struggle, but I was able to realize that as I was struggling, God carried me through, and it was just the time being of feeling like it sucked, but somehow I got through it, and God carried me through very gracefully.
That's good. And how, number 4, how did you overcome those obstacles?
So it really helped me a lot having, being in fine arts and having a group that I was able to be super transparent and honest about my struggles. And I feel like that was so important, such an important part of me coming into Christ, because I was able to not like harbor or store up all this like struggle that I was going through, because I was like, not close to perfect. So I was able to express everything that was like really troubling me and like what was making things hard. And through that, they were able to partner alongside me, speak life into my situation, and pray with me. And through this, I was able to talk to God and be like, hey God, there's a lot of weight going on my shoulders, and I just want to present this before you. And without that group, I wouldn't have been able to, like, without my church friends, my church family, like, I wouldn't have been able to get through that by myself. And that's what church really provided me, was community and people to be honest with. So that's what really helped me overcome the struggles and obstacles.
That's really good. Question number 5. Do you ever face obstacles now?
Yeah. Being a Christian does not make life easy. Let me just tell you that right now. It does not make life beautiful, butterflies and rainbows. Something that I like is still a constant obstacle is being able to wake up every single day and make the decision, God is still good.
Yeah.
I want you to lead me, and I don't want to just fall into my flesh and my own desires of life.
Yeah.
I want the life that you want for me. And the days that are hard, like, we still go through hard days as Christians.
Yeah.
But we choose to wake up the next day and still in the situation, like, as of like, wherever I'm at, to say God is still good, and He's the unchanging God that no matter my circumstance or situation, He can still move mountains, He can still heal, He can still make blind people see. He is not changing just because my situation is changing.
Yeah.
And it's been an obstacle to deny my flesh and choose my spirit, you know. Listen, you know, it's you have to, when it comes to denying your flesh and choosing your spirit, that means you have to take a step back from some situations and not react the normal way you would.
Yeah.
Julissa struggles with some pettiness sometimes. She struggles with a little attitude sometimes, and that, you know, gotta rework that. But in situations like that, if I catch myself like, hey, I'm actually being really petty right now, or I'm actually catching an attitude for things that maybe if I understood a little deeper, you know what I mean? And you can only understand situations taking a step back and realizing like the whole story, the whole situation, you know. You have to step back gracefully as God is graceful to us, to situations, to not just react off of your flesh, to take a step back and react in love, and react how Christ would react to you. You know what I mean? But you have to deny how you would normally react and choose a better way and choose a better reaction that could influence other people to be like, dang, she reacted a little different. You know what I mean? And that kind of sparks who God is like, we have to be that representation of Christ. And denying your flesh to allow your spirit to shine light on who you are is how we just show the image of God. And it's a constant battle to choose to make that decision every single morning, every situation. But I almost choked, but it's worth it.
But it's also that they're saying that everybody, like, that like most Christians or like most leaders would end up saying too, like when you give your life to Christ, like the enemy sees that and like he's gonna come like harder because like he doesn't want you, like he doesn't want to see that for you. That's another thing too, like that's also another obstacle that Christians face, that like once you give your life to Christ, like, do not think that it's gonna be all sweet and dandy. Like, no, like, that just means that the enemy, he's gonna wanna work 10 times harder to knock you off of your feet.
Guys,
and
understand, the enemy is fearful of what God can do through you. So understand that there's so much purpose in calling on your life that the enemy wants to tear you down before you can make it there. And at the end of the day, understand, be like, I am wonderfully and beautifully made, and God has called me, and the enemy is nervous of that. So he's going to want to tear you down, but don't worry. There is scripture to guide you. There is the Holy Spirit to comfort you, and friends and community in church to encourage you through it all. So don't let that discourage you at all.
And then my last question for you would be, how would you encourage someone wanting to step out in faith? What words would you share with them?
Make your decision and don't look back. I think that is such a big thing. Dive right in. Because don't leave any room for yourself to, like, don't leave any wiggle room to look back. You know what I mean? You want to be able to look back in a sense of, like, I've made it so far. Wow. You know what I mean? Once I dived right in and I took myself out of the place I was to allow God to redirect my path, I was like, it brought me to a place that I've never seen before. I could have never pictured myself walking the shoes I am today. And things are going to be hard in the beginning because you're grasping a new understanding. You're going to learn new things, new ways to react to things, new ways of life. Like, it genuinely gives you a new lens of life. And walking with the person who is love, like, you're going to fall in love with life and people and just everything of life because you're walking with the Creator. And get through those hard steps in the beginning, because when you want change, you're going to feel change. And don't let it discourage you, because when Peter, he was like, okay, Jesus asked him to walk out of the boat. He's like, all right, Jesus told me to do it. Once the wind took him a little bit, made him look, that's when he started getting shaken up. And even though he started struggling, you know what I mean? But Jesus was still faithful and grabbed him out and was like, he saved him, you know what I mean? So get through those first steps. As a toddler, like, they start from crawling, then they get to walking, then they get to running. It's a new journey, and it takes time, so trust the process. Dive right in. And my biggest encouragement is to you, like, get excited for the results of God in your life, because he's real good. He's been good to me and been good to you.
Yes. And then she also said trust the process. That's what I talked about in my last video. Just saying. But kind of to like just end this video, I wanted to share some verses with you guys. So the first verse is from John 16, verse 33. I told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world.
Next verse, Proverbs 3, 5-6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths.
And then the last verse, 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 7. For we live by faith, not by sight. And then something else that my pastor had said in one of his sermons, don't let your condition cause you to doubt your connection. I thought that was really good. So just remember, like, no matter the circumstance that you're in, like, just trust God. Have that faith. All it takes is a little bit of faith. And that faith can honestly be as small as a mustard seed, and God will move mountains with that.
Mustard seed's like the smallest seed you can ever see. So.
Yes. So I hope you like this little devotional, and I hope you enjoyed the presence of Julissa. Please go ahead and like and subscribe. I think that's it.
Okay, guys. All right. Adios. God bless.
Bye.